and good evening. I'm Melissa Idris. You're watching Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. I am with Khairy Jamaluddin, the caretaker health minister. He is one of 7 candidates contesting the Sungai Buloh parliamentary seat. It is one of the most watched campaigns in GA15. Allow me a little bit of background on Sungai Buloh. It's a seat that was previously named Subang, an MIC seat, until they lost it to PKR Sivarasa in 2008. It's since been held by PKR for the last 3 elections. In GA14, Sivarasa won that seat with a majority of over 26,000 votes. However, Khairy is not going up against the incumbent because Sivarasa was dropped from the GA15 lineup due to health reasons. Instead, he was replaced by Ramanan, a first-time candidate and a former MIC Treasurer General. Now, after close to 2 weeks of campaigning, is Khairy Jamaluddin the underdog that he paints himself to be? Let's ask the man himself. Khairy, thank you for joining me. I know you've got a bit of a sore throat, you're losing your voice, so I appreciate you being here today. Let's address this narrative that you came into this seat, this pitch black seat as you've called it. You were a sitting minister in cabinet. You were undoubtedly one of the most successful ministers, recognizable because of the pandemic. You have the machinery of Barisan Nasional behind you, the support of an incumbent prime minister, and you have the experience of several election cycles under your belt. Why would you consider yourself an underdog?
You said it yourself. This is a seat where we lost for 3 consecutive elections, and that majority that Sivarasa had continued to grow until it became a 26,000 plus majority. So notwithstanding all the advantages that you've just mentioned, I am truly in the lion's den. Selangor is ground zero as far as Pakatan Harapan is concerned. This is their bastion, this is their castle, and I've been sent behind enemy lines.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about those behind enemy lines. It's an urban seat, and historically Barisan Nasional, UMNO, does not contest in urban areas. It's a rare thing. So top
Barisan we do
Nasional,
contest, but we don't send top people there.
That's the top Barisan Nasional leaders always stand almost always in rural or semi-rural areas. Bagan Datuk, Air Keruh, Air Hitam, Sungai Siput, all of them non-urban seats. You're, as you said, going to the lion's den with this urban seat. If you win this seat, Khairy, what does it indicate to BN?
It indicates that we should be brave enough to compete in urban areas. For the last 2 election cycles since 2008, where we saw the depletion of support in the urban areas, everyone has retreated to the rural areas. And Pakatan Harapan is not keeping still. They are coming to the rural areas now. So we have to take the fight to them. We can't just continue to retreat in electoral strategy, in war. If you continue to retreat, then you will have your back against the wall at some point, and we have that now. So there were various reasons for this, but ultimately I decided, rather than trying to negotiate for a safe rural seat, to go and bring the case to the urban people and say, hey, look, you cannot give Harapan a walkover, no matter who they put as the candidate, assuming that you will just automatically give it to them. Force the urban voters, in this case in Sungai Buloh, to have a think and to consider this.
Oh, thank you for for plugging my show. I want to come back to that because yes, you're right that the opposition has indicated its interest to push into kind of rural, traditionally Barisan Nasional, UMNO territory. You moving into, and I know a lot has been said about how you came to contest in Sungai Buloh. I'd rather not get into that. So much has been reported about that already. But the fact is that you're here. And this could indicate a new move into urban areas or new fight for urban areas. The question is, how will it take, what will it take for UMNO to move out of their comfort zone, of their safe seats of rural, semi-rural areas? for the big guns to put their money where their mouth is and contest in those seats, that's not certain?
Well, a lot of it hinges on what happens this time around. So you've got me in Sungai Buloh. You've got Zafrul in Kuala Selangor. Kuala Selangor not as urban, but it's just next to Sungai Buloh.
Your neighbour.
It's my neighbour, just at the border. So if we can demonstrate that we can be competitive here, then I think you would see a lot more senior UMNO leaders having the foresight and the courage to come and offer themselves. And this point, I have to stress this point. 77% of Malaysia is urban. That's the urbanization rate right now. So if you want to represent Malaysia, the majority of Malaysia, the future of Malaysia, because urbanization has continued to increase, you have to fight these areas. Of course, the rural agenda is still important, basic amenities, all of that. I'm not saying that, I'm not discounting that. But I'm saying that this is truly the new heartland of Malaysian politics, the cities. The urban and suburban areas. This is where you have to make your case, and this is where you have to carry the country.
I think about that a lot, because the more political parties retreat to this urban-rural divide, the more divided we become, the more partisanship and I think
and policies
polarized.
are skewed. Policies are skewed as well.
I do take your point on that. I just want to know, if you win this seat, is this Khairy Jamaluddin winning, or is this Barisan Nasional winning? Can other Barisan Nasional candidates win an urban seat the way you have put up a challenge in this past 2 weeks?
Well, what I would say is that if you want to come to an urban area, you have to have earned your stripes. You have to have demonstrated that you are someone who can do the work as a minister, as a leader, and somebody that's acceptable to people regardless of their party orientation. That's the caveat for people who want to contest in an urban area. You cannot come here riding on the party, because let's face it, BN has a tough time in terms of branding in the urban areas. You have to bring with you some form of personal track record, personal achievement and commitment that will get people to say, okay, look, maybe I've discounted Barisan Nasional all this while, but they've sent this person. Clearly, they at least respect us to say that, consider this person. Again, I've plugged, sorry. Consider our candidate. We're not insulting you by just putting anybody there and assuming that you will automatically vote for us.
Oh, is that what you think happened with PKR?
No,
that
they're
insulting the Sungai Buloh
I'm not saying I'm not
fielding a first-time non-heavyweight lightweight candidate.
I'm not referring to any particular candidate. I'm saying that don't underestimate people and say that we can put anybody there and we can assume that you will vote for that person anyway, regardless of track record, regardless of what that person brings to the table. It has to be both what the party offers as far as the party platform is concerned, and the candidate that the party is willing to put there. Yeah, maybe the choice of words is not appropriate, but what I'm trying to say is that you have to respect the electorate enough in that particular place to offer a candidate that's serious.
Do you reckon voters who may opt to vote for you on Saturday are voting for Khairy Jamaluddin, the candidate, or Barisan Nasional UMNO, the party coalition?
To be very frank with you, this time around in Sungai Buloh, they are looking at the candidate. They know that I'm a Barisan Nasional leader, UMNO stalwart, but they appreciate that the consideration is the candidate this time around.
And part of the campaign has been you putting it out there that you eventually want to be Prime Minister. The cynics among us think that this is a shrewd campaign narrative, not just for GE15, but also for the UMNO party polls. Why, Khairy, did you publicly announce that you want to be Prime Minister? I mean, all politicians have ambitions, but so many are coy about it. Why did you openly state this is your ambition?
Firstly, there is a narrative going around that a vote for me is a vote for somebody to become Prime Minister. Zahid to become Prime Minister. So I want to make it clear first that as far as the Prime Minister candidate for this election is concerned, that is absolutely not true. I'm committed, and the party is committed to Ismail Sabri as the candidate for Prime Minister. And I also want to tell the people of Sungai Buloh that there's no dearth of talent within UMNO. that if you want to look at the next 5 to 10 years, then there's someone who's contesting in Sungai Buloh, wanting to become the Member of Parliament for Sungai Buloh and wanting to serve as a good Member of Parliament for Sungai Buloh with experience that I've had, who also wants to be in the conversation as far as a PM candidate is concerned in the next 5 to 10 years. To say that, you know, I'm not here just to serve the people of Sungai Buloh. I'm also here to manage and to look after Sungai Buloh well, because I see Sungai Buloh as a microcosm of Malaysia in terms of its diversity, in terms of its demographic makeup. If you can manage this place well, you can run this country. But
you know, you putting out there that you want to be PM eventually, that's put such a target, such a bullseye on your back.
Well, I'm used to that. I don't think there's been
okay, but now more so than ever, I'm sure other people have, you know, PM ambitions, but they're not saying it out loud. You've come up to say this is your career
Melissa,
plan.
we have to give hope to people that there are people who are willing to go for it.
Do you think
willing to state their ambition. I mean, yes, politicians tend to play it coy and not want to reveal their hand.
Yes.
But I think we've come to a crossroad in the country's destiny where people want hope that, you know, once this election is done, who's next? You look at the current crop of people who want to become prime minister, they're in their 70s, they're in their 60s. No, listen, and people want to know, okay, we will vote this election, but what's next after this? Because we have some serious decisions to make. This is a serious time for serious people. And if you're not even willing to say that you want to be prime minister, then maybe you're not even up for it.
I mean, I hear you that sometimes, you know, prime ministers come out from left field. Nobody saw Ismail Sabri coming, you know, as prime minister. Do you think this is the way it should be? That there should be transparency, clear succession planning. There is a pathway, as opposed to the kind of cloak and dagger, behind the scenes negotiations that happens.
Be upfront with your party and with the people that you want to be in that conversation. I'm not going to say that I will be prime minister, but I want to be in that conversation so that people can say, okay, in the next 5 to 10 years, we have KJ. Who else? Who else is transparent enough
in the running
to come and say that they want to be in the running?
But do you not put yourself at risk of being labelled as the perennial prime minister hopeful? I mean, right now that label is
it's
attached
not my label.
to
it's not my label
at the moment.
Yeah.
But is that the risk that you run?
Of course, there's a risk, but in politics, I feel that some amount of risk needs to be taken, especially if you want to offer yourself seriously. This is not, I mean, this is not a flippant remark. This is not a clever strategy on my part to distract the vote for BN, vote for KJ's, vote for Zahid. This is serious. Okay. I want to do this.
All right. And on that note, this isn't a flippant question. Why do you want to become Prime Minister? What is the substance of your ambition, Khairy? What is it that you plan to bring to the table that you think is currently missing from the leadership right now?
The ability to make the tough decisions. I think we skirt around a lot of things for one reason or another, and we give excuses to it. It was the pandemic, it was not the right time, the country is not ready for it. I think the country is ready for a bigger conversation about some tough decisions, structural issues on the economy, education system. I mean, these are things that we all know, your viewers know, but you need someone who wants to talk about these things.
We might circle back to those tough decisions that I'd like you to say on record. But for now, I do want to ask you, you know, putting yourself out there, do you think you can win over the people who distrust you, the people who are still cannot forgive you for not speaking out against Najib Razak, the people who remember you from the Fourth Floor Boys days, who think you are arrogant and will overstep? Are you willing to change their minds, or is this a lost cause?
No, I think engaging with people, trying to convince them about what you want to do, this is always a work in progress. You can never give up on people.
The people who don't forgive you for not speaking out against Najib, for aligning to his camp during those days.
But
what do you say
what
to them?
I would say to them is that you cannot ever discount people forever because they may give you a second chance. But if I was to say, oh, just because you distrust me because of whatever I've done in my past or whatever you think I've done in my past, that's not the way to become Prime Minister. You have to reach out even to your biggest detractors and try to win them over. If they eventually don't end up wanting to trust you, that's fine, because that's the nature of politics. But you must try. You can't discount people just because they distrust you. And likewise, I hope they don't discount me forever.
Okay, well, those are external detractors. Let's talk about the internal detractors. You have spoken out. I'm going to quote, Sungai Buloh signals the start of my fight to clean up UMNO. UMNO has gone astray and needs to go back to its roots. I've translated some of your PM quotations there. Could you elaborate what you mean by those comments?
We want to see rejuvenation in UMNO. This is a message that's coming during the election, not just from the public, but also from our machinery, from our members. They feel that once we're done with the election, we should really look at a changing of the guard, rejuvenation of the leadership. This is not just right at the very top, but also across the board. One underreported and underappreciated story this election is the number of first-time candidates that we've put up. And it's probably the biggest in the history of our GE. This is one good thing that the leadership has done.
What does that signal to you about the party?
It signals that we are ready for change. It signals that we are rolling the dice as far as rejuvenation in the election is concerned. That must be translated in the party election. Okay. These new people who end up having the mandate of the people must be given positions or must be elected in the party, so that you can see that the rejuvenation is not just in the election as far as electoral candidates are concerned, but also it follows through in the makeup of the party's leadership.
Okay, so you're saying that the party is ripe for change and reform?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, not for anything else, but we are also on the cusp of a generational change. As I said again, leaders, Najib's generation, they are in the sunset of their political career now. Ismail, Hisham, in their 60s, they will be there to stabilize the party over the next 1 or 2 terms. Right. And then what next?
The thing is, Khairy, before we did this interview, in my preparation for this interview, I looked over some of my old notes. And one of our interviews from 2018, I think it was September, just after the elections, the crushing defeat, the party polls where you lost the presidency bid, I looked back at my old notes, and the questions were also about rejuvenation in UMNO, correcting the course in UMNO, UMNO Baru. It was along the same lines of reform. It's been 4 years and you're still touting the same slogans. What hasn't changed in that 4 years? Why hasn't anything changed in those 4 years?
Because I didn't win the presidency.
What makes you think? What makes you think the party is ready now when it was not ready to vote you in as president 4 years ago?
Oh, I came close. I came close. It wasn't far.
Well, it was split between.
Yeah, I thought I was a spoiler candidate that finished last. It turns out Kuli was the spoiler candidate. If you added our votes, I would have won the popular vote. So it was ripe, and it is ripe. Sometimes it takes a bit of time for the fruit to fall, but the fruit was ready to fall, just didn't. This time around, I'm quite sure it will.
Were there attempts to correct course during these 4 years, during the presidency of Zahid Hamid?
These 4 years have been extraordinary because of the political instability and because of the pandemic. And I think for those reasons, things were perhaps on hold. But now this election is a watershed election coming out of the pandemic. And I think that agenda that was stalled is ready to be reignited.
Okay, so you've made comments before that having a party president who is not the prime minister just doesn't work. Why doesn't it work?
2 centers of power. It's very difficult because we need clarity as far as the center of authority is concerned for government and for party, so that the party doesn't undermine the prime minister and the prime minister is able to ensure that the agenda for the people is prioritized and the party understands that. So we cannot have a situation where the two are separate. It has to be something that is unified. And that's the case for all parties, even.
But is it the case right now for UMNO that there are two centers of power and that the party is undermining the Prime Minister?
It gets in the way. There's no clarity. So it was okay for a short period of time during the transition out of the pandemic. But it's important that once these elections are settled, that there is no dichotomy anymore between the presidency of the party and the Prime Minister of the country.
Muhyiddin Yassin said that you are prime ministerial, material was his word, prime ministerial material, but you're in the wrong party. It's a sentiment that many share.
Yeah.
Why do you stay in UMNO? Is there no disconnect between what you believe and what the party stands for?
My interaction is with ordinary UMNO members. Yes, there are warlords in any party, and they have certain set views. But my interaction is with ordinary members. And so many of them share my aspirations and my views. Yes, UMNO is a slightly conservative party in its views, but it's not without people who want change. And if I wasn't confident that the majority of UMNO members want this change, then maybe I would have questioned my presence in the party. But I see that the majority of party members want this change, and it resonates with me, and my views resonate with them. So why should I leave? I still believe fundamentally my party to be a party that is that has a mission that is relevant not just for the Malays, but within the context of Barisan Nasional for all Malaysians. And I don't want to just jump party because of ambition. I mean, that would really leave me to be labeled as somebody who doesn't care for consistency. And whatever has happened within UMNO over the last 5 years, even with me losing the presidency, being at odds with some warlords, being attacked by loyalists of Najib Razak, I've stayed in the party. I've not jumped. I'm not a frog.
Okay, you've made that clear. So for all the people who want you to leave the party, you clearly are staying. My last question is, in your outright support for Ismail Sabri as Prime Minister, why do you continue to back him as the Prime Minister candidate? You said to me a little bit earlier, leadership is the ability to make tough decisions. It's what the country needs. Ismail Sabri was not elected. He was not known for his decisive decision making. He was a wait-and-see Prime Minister. Why would Malaysians vote to repeat the last year?
2 reasons. One, he's a decent man. I've known him for more than 20 years.
Is decency
Hold on.
what we need
Hold
right
on.
now?
I'm
Okay.
getting there. First of all, you need a decent person right now. There is a case to be made for somebody who's decent, somebody who's not embroiled in court cases, not subject to attacks on the issue of integrity, on the issue of corruption. And I think he has his heart in the right place. And coming back to the fact that he's a decent person, he comes from a certain background where his political antenna is very, very sensitive towards people who are marginalized, people who come from less privileged backgrounds. And that's very clear in how he conducts cabinet, how this would impact on the man on the street. Secondly, decisiveness. I'm surprised he doesn't get more credit for this. We are here today, out of the pandemic, with a 14.2% third quarter GDP growth, stabilized the country, stabilized the political system with the MOU working together with the opposition, passing legislation like anti-hopping, amending the constitution for Sabah and Sarawak. He's got more done in the last 1 year than many prime ministers have tried to do in years. And as his health minister, the person who was responsible for steering the country out of the pandemic, I brought to him decisions which needed decisiveness. Can we open the border? Can we say no more MCO? Can we allow for interstate travel? Can we drop these restrictions? Yes, ultimately I had to make those decisions, but he had to sign off on it. And never once did he blink, never once did he waver. Are you sure? Yes, sir. Go. And that's why we're here today.
You're categorically saying he is a man who can make those tough decisions.
I've seen it. I was his health minister during COVID-19.
All right. Khairy, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I appreciate your time and all the best on Saturday. That's all we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching and good night.